My brothers and sisters, how are you, the beloved children? In this channel, we always will talk about God as a father, as the main structure of being a real prophet, because paternity of God is freedom. And today we will finish, what we did yesterday. And just remember that always when for those who are live here with me, I will pray in the end and I will also answer your questions, of course, if you have in the end of the video. Okay? And because this is a way that I have to honor those people who are here time. Okay? And we started to talk about remedy of God when healing my depression. What was the remedy of God when healing my depression? I don't know. Let's see. And this is about the penny of God. And I started yesterday. If you didn't watch that video yesterday, don't watch this video today. First, you go there, watch the part one, okay, the live 14.1, and then you will start this second part here after. Because I will not delete this video, the video will stay here, and then you can watch this part two and the final part. Okay, and I started to explain some things about depending on God, if it's right or not. And I was it's because they try to use physical uh, my connection here. It's because the people they try to use physical things, or in this case remedy, medicine, to try to fix a emotional thing. And this will be just fixing, but in a for a while, just for a moment. Then you can see many and many of people, they are now addicted, or if not addicted of some pill, some medicine yet, but they need every day to eat that pill to try to fix that problem, that mental problem, or that issue, or whatever the name you want to use for an emotional problem. And you see today that this doesn't work. I had depression, and not only one time. And it's not easy. Just when something happened in my life, I received the healing, but I also, in the same time, I discovered that, wow, then my emotion, also the healing need to affect my emotion. And one thing that happened in my life that was really difficult for me, it was in 2008 when my mom died and I stayed alone in a big loneliness. We were living, in Brasilia, living, a normal life. It was really good. It was me, my grandpa, and my mom, and we were living in the capital of Brazil. And and today, I'm living here in the West. But in that moment, I was living, in the capital of Brazil. And unfortunately, in 2006, my grandfather died, and 2 years after that, my mom died, and I stayed alone because it was me, my grandpa, and my mom. First, my grandpa died in 2008, and then my grandma. Oh, and then my mom died in 2008. My grandpa in 2006, sorry, and my mom in 2008. And I don't know if you know that my mom and my dad, they just had me as a child. And I was living with my mom always my full life in the capital of Brazil. And my father, he was living, in another state and with another family. And I didn't grow up with a father, with a natural father. And then in that moment when my mom died, I stayed alone. And do you know one thing that was complicated? It's because my family, like the big part of the family, they stayed away from me. They were not close of me in that moment. And that was the reason that I stayed more alone. And I remember to do nothing. And I was living with my last salary from in that moment because I needed to stop work in college to help my mom when she was really sick. I needed to stop everything to take care of her. And that was wonderful because I stayed in a good moments with her. But in that period, in that moment between 1 year, I was not working. I was not doing nothing. And I was eating like just a little every day because I didn't use all the money that I had from my last salary. And I was just, inside my bedroom and, doing nothing. And all that was affecting because, my mom died because I was really connected with my mom. My mom, she was like everything for me. And then I stayed depressed for more than 1 year inside that apartment. Like an answer. I didn't know how to receive from God, but I really needed an answer. And every day in the middle of the night, including knowing just a little something, I saw like, wow, this is from God. I believe I need to seek Him more in the middle of the night. I saw something in the Bible, but in that moment when I did read that information about seek God more in the middle of the night, that didn't trigger nothing inside me because that was just an information. But when you receive and when you learn by God Himself, it will trigger you something and you will receive that as a revelation. It's more powerful because it was not a book that said you, an internet that said to you, but it was God Himself. You and I didn't have pleasure, to eat nothing, to do nothing. I was just depressed. And in that moment when I was trying to seek God in the middle of the night, I had my first experience with demons. When I was, walking and praying in the middle of the night in my bedroom, in the way down, in the way how I knew, and God loved me so much that He was trying to show me more things. But the problem is because value and another thing that we will see today. I didn't put value because for me that was not something so powerful because I wanted a fire to come from the air. But sometimes God, He will come like a normal breeze, like a really slow air on the air. And that is the reason we didn't catch. That is the reason we didn't understand. That is the reason we have a difficult time to understand some things from God Himself. And how I was not having pleasure for nothing, to eat, to do nothing. In that moment when I was walking, just to finish this part, in that moment when I was praying in the middle of the night, and when I looked to my window, I saw a demon in my window. Laugh. He did like a smile, like but that dark smile, and then he laughed. And that was the first time I had that experience. And in that moment, how I had that first time, in that moment when I saw, I closed my eyes because I was scared, of course, because it was my first time. I never saw that. It was difficult. And that aloneness, that was triggering something inside me. I didn't want to stay alone because it's difficult, it's terrible. In that moment, in my consciousness, in my beliefs, in my ways how to live, I didn't have ways to live alone. But why, for example, in the Bible, we did read that Paul, he said that, including it's good, you know, if you can, it's good you stay alone. But if you can hold yourself, then, marry, you know, stay, married and these kind of things. But in that moment, the way how I was, I didn't know how to fix that. And then, I didn't want to stay alone. But then, just after 10 years, the real healing came in my life. The real healing of my depression, because that depression had a root, and the root of that specific depression was because my mom died. And then just after I heard in 2019, Hello Son, from God Himself for the first time, then it was inside my closet. And again, inside my closet, just after 10 years, the healing came. And He healed my traumas. God Himself, He healed my traumas. And I was also inside my closet. Think like that experience when I saw that demon when I was waking up in the middle of the night to pray. I discovered one thing about that, because you need to understand God, He will never try to touch your free will. Do you know that verse when it's showing Jesus is knocking the door, waiting you to open the door, to invite Him to stay in? But the enemy, he doesn't do that. The enemy kick the door if you don't have a strong door, and he will stay inside. And until the moment you kick him out, until there, maybe he already did a big mess in your life. Then God, He always was with me. But the enemy is also always around you too. Because the enemy is not here to play. It's God Himself, He healed me from my traumas. And then I saw, like, wow, I'm God, He doesn't only exist, but I am a son. Including with Jesus, the enemy tried to touch Him. Not to touch, sorry, because he can't. But the enemy tried to involve Jesus in a situation to put Him to sin with Jesus. And do you know that you are more special than Jesus? This is not like a strong word to put you more sad. No. Remember, I had depression more than one time. The first one was that when my mom died in 2008. The problem, my beloved, is because the lack of practical knowledge and the true knowledge in our lives. Including some way when we hear the true knowledge that today it's really difficult to find the true knowledge because today it's more complicated to you see people hearing God's voice and having a real relationship with God. Hear God's voice is not I think, oh I believe, oh maybe. No. You have doubts about your mom's voice or your dad's voice or someone from your families? No. With God it's the same. It's this or it's this. It's yes, yes or no, no. Don't have a middle term. Then the problem is because today we have lack of the true and practical knowledge. Because including if today someone is hearing God's voice and having a real relationship with God, that person is not put in practice. Just one thing to you understand. God is a spirit. In the Bible is talking. God is a spirit. And he wants those who worship him in truth and also in spirit. And we read, 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 read the same verse many, many times and we don't understand. I was one of them. Because maybe you can read and understand he in your thought, but not in your beliefs. It's like that thing, it's not so powerful to trigger something more powerful and strong inside you. Then, for 10 years since my mom died, until more or less 10 years since my mom died until 2019, when I started to hear God's voice and all that, something happened. Including I put in my Telegram channel. If you are not there yet, in the video description, you can click there and go to my Telegram channel to learn a little more. And it was powerful. Do you know what's happening? God, He respect two things in your life, always, no matter what. If you are good or if you are bad or whatever the moment you are, He will always respect two things in your life: your free will and your beliefs. God always will work in your life by the free will because He works by freedom. Because paternity of God is freedom. Remember, freedom. He will never try to force you to do something. Never. Because He loves you so much that He wants you to walk with your own legs. Who try to force and to control things is not God. Are people themselves. That's the ways you don't have freedom. You are stuck. If God is a father and if God is love, how a father and a loved father will try to control you? try to put you in a small prison. This is not love. Think like, for example, a mother or a father when they have a little kid, and that little kid is running and all over the place, and the father or the mother is talking, don't do that because you will hurt yourself. Don't do that because you will hurt yourself. And repeat one, two, three, four, 5 times. But that kid will try to put his finger on the wall, in that in that electric part, to plug, the electronic devices. And when they put the finger there, they, you know, and then they start to cry. And what will happen? They will go again to the arms from his parents or her parents. God always will be there for you, always. But he will not try to force you think because you need to learn by yourself. Because if he try to put his finger directly in your life, you will not put value on those things that you are learning. You need to understand one thing. I have included another video here on YouTube, and you can go there, where the subject is almost the same. Where is God? But in my problem, I believe, the title. But you need to understand one thing. What is the difference between sadness and depression? Sadness, it can be good too. Can you believe that? God created us with everything that we already have, and our emotions inside our mind are one of them. Sadness can be good because that sadness, that emotion, it's showing you something. It's trying to explain to you something. It's trying to teach you something. What's the root of that sadness? But the problem is when this sadness happening all the time, and now it will be a depression. Because depression, it's only sadness, but all the time. And that it's not good. That is the difference. And that is the reason you need to understand what is the root of this depression. Oh, the root of depression, I already know. It's some sadness repeating all the time. But now, what is the root of this sadness? In my case, was because of my mom. What's happened with her? We just need to be careful here in the depression, because when the depression it's in the beginning, and then okay, you have more ways to stop that really quick. But when the depression keep going, never stop, maybe the enemy it's already working in your life using the depression to put you more down, and you are not seeing that. That is the key when I talk to people, that it's really, but really important to develop naturally the gifts of the Holy Spirit. Naturally. Not forcing, not, oh, I will do an online training. No, you need to understand all these things need to be consequence of a real relationship with God. Consequence. 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 Repeating again. And the enemy, he can use your depression to put you more oppressed, because this is talking about continued depression, and this is about oppression now. The question is, how will you have this remedy, this medicine to fix this thing? And I needed to wait for 10 years to start to understand. And that is the reason I created More Daddy Than God, because that revelation. I created like the project, but who really created that was God Himself when He gave me that vision when I saw the Antichrist embracing the planet. And from there, More Daddy Than God and the final prophet started to happen. Just recently, the website was online, that. And I'm just starting yet. But you need to understand these things, because this is what can happen. Then the first remedy that you need to have in your life is deliverance. Do you know when the oppression finished in my life? It happened when it happened when I I was really depressed in the second depression, because it was, when I finished the marriage with my ex-wife, and I stayed in a big depression for a lot of months again, because the way how it finished was really sad. And I was depressed. And when I arrived here in the US, I was depressed. And I went in a gospel event. And in that moment, I remember an evangelist from England was there. And he prayed over me. And just because he laid his hands on me, praying for that specific thing, for something more specific about me, the next day, I was not feeling oppressed anymore. I didn't have desires for porn, because I had porn addiction too. I was not depressed, because the enemy was using those things to put me oppressed. Oppressed. And that's the reason, the first remedy that we need to have is, if we can't, if we don't have ways, we need to ask for help. But there is something specific about those people that you need to have for help. It's not like any kind of person. And the second remedy, when really happened in my life, to heal for real and for sure depression in my life, about everything that happened in my life, it happened just after, when God Himself now was not someone else that helped me. I was now in another moment, when God Himself, He healed me from my traumas. What is traumas? Traumas are the root of those consequences that is happening: depression, anxiety, addiction, and all that stuff. All these things, they have a root. In my case, why I was depressed? Because my mom died, for example, the first time. And one of the things that God Himself needed to heal me was about the death of my mom, of my mom, that root. And then when God, He healed me from my traumas, boom. And there is a way God will use to understand. Remember when I started here about the lack of knowledge and practical knowledge and the true knowledge? And it came just because the revelation came a surface, the surface revelation. It was not yet like God really talking to me. No, it was something that God put inside of me, and I understood something that was behind that verse. Wow, God is a spirit. God is spirit. And the second remedy came like that, because God Himself, He healed me from my traumas. Then you already saw these two things that need to happen in your life to you be healed. The first one, the deliverance, and the second, healing from God Himself. But the deliverance need to happen for sure, because if you are depressed or with anxiety, addiction, and all that stuff, maybe the enemy is using those things to put you oppressed. And if God try to heal you without set you free first, you will not have ways to be healed. Because that is, think like, for example, to you start to take a shower, to you feel clean, totally clean, first you need to take off your clothes, right? And it's what you need to do, wash your clothes. And it's the same what you need to do before to go to take a shower. You need to wash your clothes. You need to go and wash your clothes. Oh, sorry, or take off your clothes. And then you will go to the shower. You can't wash your body, if you are using your clothes inside the shower, right? You can't. That is the reason you need to respect this process and stay close of wise people. And when I'm talking, to you start this first remedy, because it's not a remedy, right? You have a emotional problem, then you need to be healed in your emotional way. Stay close of wise people. It's what? It's at least those people who are at least hearing God's voice and having a real relationship with God. Because if they are having these two things, believe me, they will be already in some way glorifying God's name. And how we glorify God's name? Doing the same thing like Jesus did, healing the sick, giving a word of wisdom, being a prophet in someone's life, revealing something that only God and that person knew, like it happened in my life. It was the first boom, like in my life, the first big encounter with God. And in this moment of deliverance, it's really important, this supernatural big first meeting, let's say like that, with God needs to happen in your life. Amen. And it's that, my beloved. I don't know if we have some doubt, but you need these two things to happen in your life: deliverance and healing. And healing of your trauma needs to come to, like, from God Himself. He needs to do in your life, not a person. God Himself, because you need to find Him as a Father. Amen. And God bless you, and see you tomorrow. Bye bye.